I think she's gonna, you're gonna stay full screen, right, the whole time? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Good morning, and welcome to the Overland Park Chamber's Fireside Chats Series. Today we welcome both our in-person and our virtual guests. Frankly, it kind of looks like my office. And from a little tour around the Corporate Woods parking lot, it looks about like everybody else's office as well. This series features business and community leaders for personal, in-depth conversation about leadership and their views on relevant community events. I'm excited to be part of the program on behalf of BHC, and BHC is honored to partner with the Chamber as a series sponsor for Overland Park Fireside Chats because it is a great way to get to know our community leaders and to refine our own leadership skills. Today, we have with us Overland Park Mayor Carl Gerlach. As we all know, Mayor Gerlock is finishing his last term of elected service and will be passing the baton. Mayor Gerlock has an impressive and lengthy bio, which can be found on the City of Overland Park website, and which probably most of us have heard at various events. Is that fair?
Yeah, please, don't go into it.
He also has a Wikipedia page. But Mayor, I do have to say that your LinkedIn profile could use a little work. So when you're unemployed, you might want to buff up your LinkedIn profile.
That's when I won't need it anymore.
So rather than read his bio, I wanted to give you some perspective that might play through our conversation today. Carl grew up in Johnson County, but in that part of current Leawood that was out in the country. If you can imagine it at a time when they would swim in Indian Creek. And no, I'm not talking about a city pool. We all know that Mayor Gerlock played basketball at K-State during some pretty good years, which I'm sure influenced who he is today. He lived in the athletic dorm where the athletes lived together and worked together. I think there's an interesting analogy there with civic leadership. We all live in this community together, and we all need to work together. Regarding how being part of a competitive team shaped his beliefs, Carl has a phrase. It's amazing what can be accomplished when it doesn't matter who gets credit. And I think that sums up how selflessly you've served the City of Overland Park. Mayor Gerlock actually started college studying engineering. So he and I, we're connected, right? We're on the same wavelength right now.
I wish I could be more connected with you. We could have finished in engineering.
You have a couple of kids who graduated in engineering, and I understand they're being very successful.
They are.
So, there might be a few engineering firms around town where you might be able to do a little retirement gig and maybe get back to those engineering roots in some way. So,
If I don't have to pass thermodynamics, that's what killed me.
ooh, that did us all in. So it's going to be fun today to hear about successful leadership, Mayor Gerlock's style. So good morning, Mayor, and good morning, Tracey.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. We appreciate BHC's sponsorship of the Fireside Chats, and more than anything, we appreciate you, your leadership in the community. You also are an elected official, and so I thought it was most appropriate to shake it up just a little bit, not have you just introduce the series, but also just join us for this Fireside Chat with the Mayor. So I'm looking forward to our conversation here this morning, and I think we're going to delve just a little bit deeper into what makes the mayor tick. So I think it's going to be a fun hour. Mayor, I know that you were a little bit surprised when I called you and asked you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You said, everybody knows me already. But I think maybe people think they know you, but you don't always have an opportunity to say what you really think. And you're still in office, so we may not get to the bottom of everything you really think today. But Kevin and I talked about some questions that we hope give you an opportunity to share just a little bit more about the insights that have made you who you are, the leadership style that you have really utilized over the last 26 years in public office, and maybe some things that will inspire other people. So I want to start by taking you back. I don't know if you remember, I started here the week of Thanksgiving in 2004. And I think you were probably one of the very first people that I met for breakfast. And you were getting ready for your mayoral election, the very first one. You were serving on the city council, and we talked about what was going on in city council, current affairs at the time, and some of your goals for office. And so I'd like you to reflect a little bit back to that time and what some of the major achievements that you believe really are the hallmark of your tenure as mayor.
Well, first I want to say that they aren't my achievements. They really are. I am a team oriented, probably because of all the sports I played. Jack Hartman impressed upon you that you could do more as a team than you could an individual. So I think we've had unbelievably great teams. And when I say teams, the councils have been great teams. The staff has been fantastic. The community, the chamber, everybody has worked together here in those years. I think it's been something I wasn't sure that much about the chamber, and I was always involved in the chamber back then. But I finally decided, before I got elected, I decided to volunteer to the chamber. My wife and I, Joe, was very involved in different things. And I wanted to tie my volunteerism into my job, and that was the chamber. So I attended the chamber and got on some committees. Some city and state affair task force was the first one they asked me to chair. I thought, oops, I better attend city council meetings and find out what's going on. So I did, and I'm a lifelong learner. I truly believe in once you stop learning, you start dying. And so this was something new. I'd be in sports. I didn't have any time for government. And I really enjoyed it. The government was run well. Ed Eilert was here. I started attending council meetings, and 2 years later, I'm still attending council meetings. My wife's wondering what I do on Monday nights. But I had a great time, and that's when somebody said, well, why don't you run for council? I thought, no, I'm a businessman. I'm not a politician. And that's what they were looking for, was just somebody to make good decisions for our community.
Absolutely. Well, I think you definitely have done that. I think that's a hallmark of your public service, is trying to approach government like a business and make the best decisions in a team-like atmosphere. And maybe you could comment on your business relationships. You've made that, I think, one of the cornerstones is making sure that you have a relationship with the business community, that you consider the businesses, as partners. And so, you have an audience, you have two audiences, one in person here of business people and another online. And so, what do you think has been successful about making sure that you hear that business voice as you're considering important decisions?
Well, I realized, real quickly that a town needs to continue to grow also, just like an education. And for a town to grow, you need jobs. And you need high quality, good paying jobs. And we have a very, very educated constituency here. So you need to bring in jobs. And so that's why I thought the business connections were so important. The business connections like with BFC Roads and with Black and Beach, jobs that could bring people to the city, but also could add additional jobs for our people. And so there were the people that were already living here. So it was an easy connection for me, being a businessman, the chamber, and how you continue to get a city to grow. One interesting time, I attended an economic development event down in Plaza someplace, and there was a university professor who, they were asking me what some of my strategies were new when I was a new mayor. And I said, well, I believe in rebuilding the older part of our city, redevelopment part, but at the same time, we want to continue to develop the newer green space area. And he stood up, he was from a local college, and he said, that's impossible. You can't do that. Well, don't tell an athlete that he can't do anything. because my entire career has been towards watching the redevelopment in downtown. I think we're doing pretty good with downtown Overland Park. And the new development, the new homes being built and development going out south. And so just tell me I can't do something.
Well, I'm glad you did listen.
Well, Mayor, I want to dig into that a little bit.
Sure.
And in particular, I want to dive right into leadership in the public realm. You've mentioned relationship with the business community. You've mentioned growth and economic development. You know, with policy decisions or economic development decisions, there's often different points of view, different perspective, and oftentimes that can become controversial. So as an elected leader, how do you deal with outspoken opposition or maybe even direct criticism?
You know, if I can go into Allen Fieldhouse and have 15,000 people screaming at me, and that's a joke. Kevin and I are Free Staters. There's a few KU people around here, but my brother went to KU, so it's okay. You know, you deal with people. You look for the goal. I think all of the people here in Overland Park have a common goal, and that's to make this even a better community than it was when we arrived here. So I think we have a common goal. It's just how do you get there? And I think education is important. I think bringing people up to speed on what the issues are. Sometimes civility is important, you know, to make sure that, and I think once you've talked about things, people may not agree with you, but they'll respect you, and maybe you can compromise. It's a word in Washington that is terrible now, they say, but to me, compromise is an important thing. I don't know everything. You don't know everything, but together, if we can work out a deal, something that pleases both of us a little bit, I think that's been the answer. I think there was a bank on College Boulevard here when I was on the council years ago, just a little story. And they wanted to build a bank right on the other side of some single-family homes across from the community college. And the people met with me, and they said, we don't want that bank to infringe on there was a row of trees, about 20 foot of trees between the two. So I met with the bankers first, and I said, well, I know you own the property, you could take out all the trees, but can you only go in, 4 or 5 feet into the trees and leave some trees? And they said, sure, we can do that. I met the neighbors, and they said, well, if they wouldn't come in to take out too many of the trees, we'll be happy to support the project. Well, they both gave a little bit. We have a wonderful bank that's been there for a long time, and it backs up to the homeowners, and the homeowners are happy.
Well, I think your comments about, wanting to make the community the best is really shown through in your years of service. But I'm curious, different people have different ideas of what the best is. How do you keep yourself grounded in your own view of your perspective or your thoughts or your dreams of what the best for the community is? What keeps you grounded?
My wife. No, I ask her opinion on a lot of things. Like I said, because I don't know everything, but I talk to a lot of people. You go to the grocery store, you go to Sam's, you go to Costco, people are going to talk to you. Now, I've been very fortunate. People are most of the time pleased and tell me what they like. There's some tell me what they don't like and how to make it better, but you listen to them. I get involved in a lot of organizations like the Overland Park Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development. I try to stay connected to people, because if you don't, they're going to connect to you in the grocery store. They're going to stop you. My wife doesn't like to take me to Sam's or Costco anymore. She said, okay, I'll see you in a little bit. See you when I finish, I'll come by. But it's, I think just listening to people, explaining maybe some things they don't understand about the projects. Some of these economic development projects are very complicated. The the media doesn't take the time anymore to explain them. And so I think that's part of where the loss in civility comes from. People don't understand, they have no way to learn about it, and they really do appreciate learning. So I think it's just a connection with people.
So I'd like to follow up a little bit as we're talking about civility. It seems like that has changed greatly. I know that, a lot of people say it's always been there. We could go back to the 17 and 1800s and look at congressional disagreements that, grew into very aggressive arguments, that it's always been there. But it seems like through social media and, even public hearings and public comment periods, that has greatly changed in the last 5 years. So what kind of solutions would you offer, as we move forward to helping people come to an understanding and greater communication to get to civility?
If I had that answer, Tracy, wow. It has changed. What I've seen is, I think we've always had some of the problem in Washington, Topeka, but we didn't have it in Overland Park. Of course, Washington, Topeka are both party affiliated. We're not affiliated, when you run for council. I think a big change has happened, and the media's changed in that it doesn't have time or efforts to explain, go into depth on some of the details. I think social media's come on. Social media, do you really need to be true, or you can state anything you want on social media nowadays, and so people are. And I think it's just starting to come down from Washington, Topeka into the city of Overland Park, which I hate to see because, as I've always said, there's not a partisan pothole. Now, how we fix that pothole needs, the plan can be done different ways, and that needs to be discussed, but we're all wanting to fix the pothole. I really don't know all the parties of the people that are on my council. I know they care about the city of Overland Park. They aren't there for a reason. They're there to make the city better. They aren't there just to move on to this or that. And when you have a council that's like that, they're easy to work with. But you got to spend a lot more time with the people, talking to them, explaining to them, things like that.
Well, that kind of leads into my next question, which is the good news.
Oh, good.
As you get ready to leave
You have
office.
the tough questions already. So time for some of the good
Oh, I
news.
think Kevin's still got some hard questions. So about 10 days ago, we released, the Chambers Foundation and the Home Builders Association released a poll. And, one of the best statistics of that poll was your approval rating. 65% approval rating, according to our pollster, that's just unprecedented, unheard of across the country. And the good thing about that was it was bipartisan, almost equivalent in nature between Republicans and Democrats, which really speaks to your last point, which is it doesn't matter to you, whether it's an idea or a policy or a solution that is a Republican or Democrat. And 75% of our voters believe that our community is headed in the right direction. And so, as the captain of our team, that's got to be really great news for you. I'd like to hear about your reaction to that when you heard that news, and what lessons you believe that gives us for the future. For this next generation, we know there will be some changes that are coming for our leadership, and what that means for us.
I think, well, where do I start with that question? I think there will be some changes. Changes are good. All the organizations I've been involved with, after so long, I say, it's time for some new minds, some new ideas to come in. I've been around here for a long time, and I think I have, and I think it's time for some new ideas to come. And I'm not against doing things differently or new. I think it's good. But I think as long as the people that get involved in the city get information from the majority. Your survey was a very good survey, not because it rated me high, but because it told us what the citizens are wanting and needing to do to continue to improve. It's funny, last night we got our survey in. The city of Overland Park does surveys every about 3 years. And it pretty much matched your survey, chamber survey. It said that people are happy 97, 98% of the time, we're going in the right direction. And I think you got to take those surveys, then you get out and talk to the people, and you pull all that together, and it gives you a direction. Taking an ideology is not listening to the people or survey, because this is one thing I believe, this is what I'm going to do. That's not how you achieve the best outcome for a city and the people. And that's what we're all here about, is making a better city for the people to live in. I mean, I plainly stated when I became the mayor, is my goal is a simple goal. I do believe keep mama happy and everybody's happy in the family. And I know my wife would be happy if my kids lived around here. And so many of our kids over all the years, I mean, not my kids, but our kids, they go off to some very top-ranked universities, KU, K-State, Missouri, and then they go off and take a job at who knows where in the country, and that's okay. But let's build a community that is desirable to our kids, that they want to come back and be close to mom and dad. And that's why we need jobs. That's why I was such a advocate for jobs, because years ago we didn't have enough jobs and the kids had to leave to get better jobs. Now I think we've changed. I think we have a lot of great jobs here and they're great for our kids, but the kids said we need entertainment. So we went out and looked at, well, we need to build entertainment into the community. We got Top Golf, we got iFly. We're working on things to make it what the people want. Not what I want, not what any one ideology wants, but what the city and the citizens want. And I think we're achieving.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's great. I want to look a little bit farther down the road. It's critical that we, I'm going to say the business community, those participating in the chamber, mentor our next generation for our workforce purposes, and also for public service. So I'm curious, what message would you like us, the business community, to tell our peers and to tell those who we mentor about getting involved in civic activity?
It's the most important thing because it brings you knowledge of others and what things you're doing. I would say the main thing is to get involved. It doesn't matter if it's city government, your church, your synagogue, coaching, sports, it doesn't matter, but get involved. Find where your passion is. Don't get involved because you want to be able to use the stepping stone up the ranks. Get involved because your passion is about it. If it's got to do with domestic violence, which this is Domestic Violence Month, get involved there. But wherever your passion is, get involved, spend the time, learn, contribute back to the community, because then it's your community. If you just live here, if you fly in, fly out of this community, but if you live here, you want to get involved. Volunteering is what we're doing for you.
That's part of it, as you said, living together and working together.
Yep.
So you talk about passion, and I know one of your passions is education. And I know you're involved in many different ways. And we talk a lot about schools in Overland Park and Johnson County. We've got great education at the K through 12 level, community college level, and so on. But tell us what you see as the influence of education and academic opportunities in community quality of life and economic development. And maybe talk a little bit more about some of your engagement in education.
Well, I have to credit my wife her father was a community college.
Maybe we should add Jill here.
Oh,
That's our next fireside.
Yeah.
it would be much
Jill
better
Gerlock
than
Unplugged.
it would be much better. You better wait until I'm out of office. I got to credit her. Her father was the Kansas Community College president for years and years. She was raised believing in education. Her brother's in education. Her mother was in education. I didn't grow up in an education background like that, but I believed education was important. And that she got me involved in Johnson County Community College because it's just a fantastic college right here in Overland Park. I've been involved in K-State. I'm currently had a meeting just yesterday on, it's called K-State Ventures. It's the commercialization of intellectual properties. And basically what that means is universities have a lot of research going on, and a lot of knowledge in universities, and they come up with some great patentable ideas. Well, how do you commercialize it? Sometimes the creative people that can come up with these ideas, or the very intelligent people, the engineers, like that come up with these ideas, aren't the best people to take it to market. So we try to help it's sure not me. I'm on the board, but there's a lot of really, Kent Glasscock, you might remember him from years ago in the legislature. He is heading up this organization, and they're putting together, and I think we heard yesterday, they have 80 different projects that they're trying to pursue. Some of them work, some of them don't. But that's how I can get back to the K-State. And it's all about economic development in Manhattan. They want to grow 3,000 jobs in the next 10 years. Excuse me. Well, that's pretty similar to all communities. They want to grow. And so, excuse me. Sorry about the live coughing. So it's a way to get back to the community. I learned too. I know how we do economic development here. How do they do it in Manhattan? What do they do different? What can I borrow from them? And so it's a learning experience for me, but it's a giving back and a volunteering to a community also. I got involved in JCERT. JCERT is the fund that helps K-State Olathe and Edwards Campus, KU Edwards Campus, and the Med Center, the cancer research. All very important things to build our community. You can't just do one thing. You have to find out what we need. And as I was looking at how do we grow jobs, you look at, well, how do we get more educated people? Let's do it right here. Let's create a relationship between the community college and KU and K-State. Not that I did it, but let's support it when they want to do things. So we're lucky we have an educated constituency, and we continue to educate them. My son went to Johnson County Community College. He's an engineer, but when he wasn't ready to go up to K-State or a bigger university, and so he went to Johnson County, got his first couple of years out of the way in engineering, went up to K-State, and when they were going around the room sitting advising what classes to take, the instructor looked at his resume and said, well, you've had all this math. And I'd heard him tell a lot of people that went to other community colleges, well, you better retake that because K-State, KU, they're a little different level. And he looked at my sons and said, oh, you went to Johnson County, you can go on to the next level. That's the way universities are looking at graduates and people who go to Johnson County. It's up there with the best, and they'll continue to move these kids along. And my kid graduated in 2 more years at K-State. So very important. Education at all levels, very important.
Carl, I think one of the things that we've really enjoyed from the chamber's perspective of your term as mayor is that you really have lived that partnership as a strong advocate for education, both K through 12 and post-secondary, and then the partnerships that you've created with JCERT and with K-State. And so I want to talk just a little bit more about the economic development piece of that, how that all ties together. And what do you see as some of the big hurdles economic development wise for the future, and some strategies that we really need to be looking out for as a community for Overland Park, for future development and jobs? You know, just like Manhattan, just like every other community, we want those jobs too. And you know, there's a certain kind of job that's always been a sweet spot for us. And so, you know, if you were to create that roadmap, what would those strategies be for us?
Wow, you
She said the questions were going to get easier, right?
Exactly.
I think one of the things that kind of came to realization just yesterday, I've been thinking about this, but we probably need to tie our economic development at Overland Park even tighter with some of the universities. There is a true desire in business to try different things, but business is hesitant. You know, if they start losing a lot of money, they usually go out of business. That's not a good way to run a business. And so if we can get the universities tied in more with economic development to help give companies a opportunity to test some of the ideas. I mean, you got to be creative. You got to get outside the box. I think that's an important aspect. And a second part to this too. I'll think of it here in a second.
We'll come back.
Yeah.
So you know, just listening to you talk, you give credit, right, to plenty of other people. Obviously, you're a very collaborative type of leader. You know, I said in the intro, I'm sure your college sports experience shaped your feelings of what an effective leader is or isn't, but, you know, and shaped your style of it. I'm sure, you know, your time in your professional career has shaped leadership style, and maybe even in your public office situation. So kind of talk a little bit about different leadership styles. They all maybe work, right? They work for different people. They work in different ways, but maybe talk a little bit about some of your experience that shaped your leadership style.
Leadership's very important, and I kind of watched it. First of all, when I was asked to follow Ed Eiler, I studied leadership enough to know most people that follow a great leader fail. It's just tough to, because everybody sets you on a podium and says you got to be up at this level. So you got to work hard at it. But through my basketball, I saw a lot of different leadership styles. I played for Jack Harden, who was militaristic, controlling. He truly believed he had a great system. And if you put 5 guys on the court and if they did what he wanted to, and we did win a lot. Went to 2 NCAA Elite Eights. So I can't say there's anything wrong with it. But then I saw on our team was a player, Lon Kruger. And he was a much more involved coach. Most people didn't talk in the Jack Hartman huddle. Lon Kruger did, because he could put 2 and 2 together and come up with different ideas. But he believed in utilizing the abilities of the player in addition to putting them into a system. Much more communicative type. So I learned a lot from that. Lon and I are good friends to this day, and he just retired from coaching too. I think I take it back to make it really simple. Remember the show, $1 Million Pyramid? You answer questions, you got some help. Well, one of the answers There's the audience can help answer, or the experts can answer. Well, the experts got it right about 60% of the time. The audience got it right over 90% of the time. Kind of goes back to my belief, and those things that you don't just dismiss. It's like, well, let's ask some people, because the more people you ask, the better idea you're going to get, correct answer you're going to get. So, as I said, I'm not this, I know there's a lot of people smarter than I am. So I got to use them. I got to use them. That sounds bad, but you bring them, you need to bring them together, okay? To help come up with the best answer.
Awesome.
That's good. Well, I love the analogy of the TV show and asking them. So I think two of the strategies or plans I think that you're leaving us as a community are Vision Metcalf and Forward OP. And because you asked, we asked literally hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people what they thought about what Overland Park should look like and be like, really how we should develop in the future. And so, what are your thoughts as you leave office on both of those plans, and what worked, what didn't, what you hope remains of them maybe 10 years from now?
Well, I think Vision Metcalf, which I think we started about 12 years ago, what didn't work is the recession hit us, and it slowed it down. But I think we're now seeing, we made it through the recession, and the development community we brought together with over 1,000 people and said, what do you want Metcalf Avenue to look like? It's a major artery of the city. What do you want it to look like in the future? And both of them told us what they wanted, and put those together, and it's happened. I think downtown Overland Park is going to continue to grow, to get better. But they needed density along Metcalf. A lot of people would like to see more transit in Overland Park. We're a spread out suburb. Well, the vision was to try to increase the density so you could afford to run light rail. Light rail is pretty expensive, but buses, excuse me. And I think we've really centered on 95th and Metcalf a lot, and downtown, I think we need, and we're doing a little bit up on Shawnee Mission Parkway in Metcalf, but there's a lot of work to be done down 119th in Metcalf. So I think that vision kind of set people off and got them moving. Forward OP, I think it's different. It's not focused on increasing density and stuff. It talks about increasing the quality of life and the vision and the welcoming of others into our community, which I think we're getting high marks now on being welcoming, but it also talks about bringing more intelligence into a community. And that kind of ties back to the universities and, being university. It's going to pull, it's not what the cities can do. This is what the community needs to do. And it's business leaders, and it's university leaders, cities leaders, all coming together to look at what's best for this community. We've met with a couple other cities that are doing similar things, and it's amazing. It's almost like a fireside chat. Some of these other cities are having for thousands of people a couple times, just to bring people up to speed on what's going on with Forward OP, or in their case, their city. But that's what it's going to take, is education, continue, because the media isn't furnishing that education anymore. So we need to find ways to take that information out, keep people up to speed on what's going on. If we're doing the right thing, they're happy. If we aren't, make some changes.
You talk about Vision Metcalf and the progress that's been made there, and some, I had a little bit of a setback with the recession, but real progress is getting made, real noticeable progress. want to take a little different spin on the future, because you talk a lot about getting people together, bringing people together. You don't do it by yourself, and in many ways, Overland Park doesn't do it by itself. There's economic development opportunities that requires workforce from outside of the city limits. There's residents of Overland Park who work elsewhere, have commercial opportunities elsewhere, entertainment opportunities elsewhere. So you can maybe talk about Overland Park in the context of Johnson County or the greater metropolitan area. So kind of what's your vision, or what's your one? You talk about making Overland Park a place that people come back to maybe after they've explored other areas. What's your view of what you want out of the metropolitan area or out of Johnson County, or the dream?
Well, I said that the metropolitan area, I think it was, when I first got in office, I may have my numbers wrong, but it was 1.5 million people, and the whole metropolitan. And we need to grow that to over 2.5, 3 million people, because for us to have some of the things that we have, Royals, Chiefs, soccer, sporting, also the arts. I mean, for us to be a community, we're competing against other cities that have all those, so we can't lose these. And if we are growing metropolitan area, that's going to help us support them. I remember what I forgot to say earlier about economic development. It ties right into this. Just today, before I came here, I read an email. I maybe find information from others that don't know to give me information that's going to be blown now, but Texas, I'm on the economic development mailing list or email list for the state of Texas. And they send a lot of information trying to get you, hey, the one this morning said, hey, if you're a company that you're starting to grow and you need to expand, consider Texas. We've got great economic development down here. We got great incentives. They have a lot more money than Overland Park has. But they're really pushing to bring business down there. So, I mean, that's a competitor of ours. We've got to compete. We can't go into our own world and say, well, this is what we're going to do, because the other cities will just take our kids, they'll take our businesses, and they'll leave us a city that's starting to decline. And again, just like education, once you stop learning, you start dying. Once you stop growing, you start dying from the city standpoint. And so we've got to take a big view of this and grow the entire metropolitan. Of course, yes, I want to grow the metropolitan, but part of that is going to be growing Overland Park too. And that's important.
I know you've really focused on reaching out to communities who are not like you, and you received recognition and I think great friendships, from the NAACP and from the Muslim community. And so I'd like for you to talk just a little bit about that as a way of offering advice to others about making this not just a more welcoming community for welcoming's sake, but a cohesive community to promote better understanding, and talk about why that was important to you, and maybe simple tips on how you did that. How do you get started?
Got a couple of stories that get right to the key. I give credit to a lot of people for helping me do that. I grew up in Johnson County, went to Shawnee Mission South, had 842 people in my graduating class of high school, so we had a huge school. 4 blacks in the whole school. Nobody's prejudiced, but I didn't understand the black person. I went up to K-State, moved into the athletic dome. All of a sudden, guess who the minority is? And we started playing basketball, and after a game, one of the early games, Danny Beard from Sparta, Illinois, he said, "Gerlock, get back here in the bus." We rode buses back then. We don't get to fly like today's athletes. We're coming back from Oklahoma from the state, long bus ride. And Danny said, "You don't understand the black man, do you?" I said, "Well, I've never been around him." He said, "I'm going to teach you about the black personality. It's a little different, but it's, but we need you not to be looking over your shoulder on the court. Of course, when somebody does something to you or threatens you or something, we need you to play basketball." So he helped me learn about the black athlete, which just opened up. I mean, wonderful friend Danny Beard is still a wonderful friend to this day, thanks to that education he gave me. And I have to give the same credit to the Muslim. Arif and Asma Amma are very close friends. They said they started inviting me to some of the Muslim dinners and stuff, and they had us, my wife and I, over to eat. And finally I said, I don't know what to say. I don't know anything. I need help. They said, "Well, what questions do you have?" I said, "Well, here's a simple one. How do I know if I should stick my hand out and shake a Muslim woman's hand? Some do, some don't." He said, wait, see if they stick their hand out." That was really tough. But we talked about, we had a Muslim girl that disappeared from KU Edwards campus a few years ago. This was all during that time, and and the police found her. They found out she didn't run away. Oh, she ran away. She wasn't abducted. She didn't want to marry. She was in an arranged marriage. Her parents had made, and she didn't want to marry that guy. And so we talked about arranged marriages. We talked about, they are such a wonderful group of people. Sure, every group of people have some extremists, but these people care about the community as much as any of us do. They care about their religion. They care about their kids and education. And this is why it made it very easy for me to learn, educate myself on different cultures, because there's so many things that we're all alike. We are. Bottom line, we're all alike.
So if you could go back and give the young Carl Gerlach a piece of advice, what would that be?
Don't be so quiet and shy. I was I played sports and I was in Boy Scouts and Eagle Scout, but I was a quiet, shy, and the opportunities like those I just described to you that I've had by being mayor, I would have tried to find those opportunities when I was younger, to meet more people, meet different people, to learn that even though we're all different and do things or sound a little different, we're the same, and build more friendships. I'd still be an Eagle Scout, but
Yeah.
I think that's one of the greatest things that our kids can do nowadays. And boys and girls can do it nowadays. And it just teaches you so much. And if you do become an Eagle Scout, put it at the top of your resume because it makes a difference.
I don't think I have anything else unless, Mayor, is there anything that maybe came up through the course of thinking here that you want to reflect on or pass along for words of wisdom?
Well, I just want to say thank you to the Chamber. Thank you for both of you. Thank you for the business community, for growing me. I mean, it's been a wild ride and a fun ride. I've enjoyed, like I say, most of everything I've done while I've been mayor has been very positive. People have been positive. Sure, there's some that, don't agree with the decisions that are made, and I'll be happy to sit down I remember one time early back when people used to call you, now they just email you and text you and social media you, but a guy called or a lady called my home. I picked up the phone. I always pick up the phone. And I said, hello. She said, is this the mayor? I said, yeah. I just wanted to leave a message. I didn't really want I said, well, let's talk about it. Well, she wanted to leave a one-sided message. And I said, well, tell me what you're going to say. And we had a great conversation. She said, well, I didn't know that. But I guess the summary comes back, pick up the phone. Because it's amazing what you can learn when it doesn't matter who gets the credit.
Very good.
Absolutely. Well, Carl, I can't thank you enough on behalf of not just the chamber, but the business community and the entire community. You stepped up when there was an opportunity. You came out of, I guess, out of the farm team, out of the government affairs committee, and it was time for someone just to go watch the city council and see what was happening and represent us. And then you stepped in when it was, you needed someone to be a good advocate to run for city council. And then when it was time for someone to be mayor. And you've done that for 26 years. So that's an amazing amount of time.
Thank you. I have to blame Ed Eilert.
Well, I think Ed Eilert gets blamed for a lot of things.
Ed came to me and said he wanted me to run, and I went, no way. And he said, it's easy. You don't have to do much. It's easy. It's easy. But Ed's been a great friend, a great mentor, along with great music.
It's probably one of the few times that Ed Eilert lied, because when he said it was easy, he made it look easy.
He did make it look, he still does.
Yes, he does. Well, we thank you very much for your public service, and thank you so much for your candor today. I know that we all learned from it.
Well, I'm going to lose a couple connections I have to get information on Texas.
Maybe so.
That's okay.
But, I think that they have big egos and they probably are not watching us.
Okay.
So I think it's probably okay.
Good.
So Kevin, I'm going to thank you for your sponsorship and give you the last
Absolutely.
word today.
Thank you, Tracey. Thank you, Mayor Gerlock. This was awesome. I've gotten to talk to you at various events and certainly have seen you at podium several times. So it's really good to kind of hear from the heart, from the gut, what makes you tick and what makes you you. So we really appreciate that. And we all really appreciate your leadership in the community. So thanks for taking the time to join us.
Sure.
And on behalf of BHC, thanks for letting us sponsor the Overland Park Fireside Chats Series. I'm happy to do it. So on that, be sure to join us for the next Fireside Chat, November 4th, right? We'll feature Dr. Michelle Hubbard, the new superintendent of the Shawnee Mission School District. So please join us for that. And if there's nothing else, then I think we're adjourned. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for
I know.